Can you guys see my screen? The
Yes, we can see your screen, not in the presentation mode. You may have to swap the screens. Yes, it's in
are
the
we
presentation mode. Thank
okay?
you.
All right, so this is a quick one, and I'll just go ahead and jump in and get started. It's about the Alaska Education Grant, and not much has changed, so it's a pretty quick one. But these are the topics that I'll be going over. We'll define it, go over the eligibility, the award amounts, talk about ASAP, and then how disbursements are awarded. Just a quick history on AEG. It was created by the Alaska Legislature in 2004. I remember it well. And it was for need-based financial aid to Alaska residents going to school within the state of Alaska, going to college within the state of Alaska. The first awards were in 05-06, and it's fully funded by the Alaska Higher Education Investment Fund for its continued use. Max awards for the AEG or $4,000 per academic year. So if a student is awarded the $4,000, I always remind them it's divided by 2. And to receive the awards, again, it's based on need. So unlike the APS, there's nothing they have to do to qualify for it. They simply fill out the FAFSA. The award amounts are based on full-time or half-time status. So the student does have to be at least a half-time student, and they're of course verified by the school. The max award of $4,000 per year goes to students who are on-time status, which is when they're taking 5 classes per semester on a 3 credit per hour scale, or 15 credit hours for that semester. If they're full-time, which is usually 4 classes, then they generally get about 3. They get the 3,000 amount, and that again, that's divided per semester, 1,500 per semester, or 2,000 if they're on-time status with the 15 credit per semester. The total aggregate amount for however long it takes them to get through college is $16,000. So if they get their 4-year degree in, say, 6 years, and their full-time status, they could, theoretically receive money through the 6 years if they weren't on-time status, if they were full-time or half-time. So they'll if they're eligible, will continue to see amounts up to $16,000. So that's where it caps, and that's where it stops. Now, to be eligible, the student has to be Alaska resident, which of course is goes by the standards of the PFD, 365 days in Alaska before filling out the FAFSA, and they have to be U.S. citizen. They have to have high school diploma or GED. They have to be admitted into an undergraduate degree program or vocational certificate program at the qualifying Alaska institutions, and we'll go over those institutions. And they have to be, as I mentioned earlier, enrolled at least half-time status. If they're half-time, then they get half the award for the year, and then again that's divided by the semesters for the academic year that they're in. Can they get, say, half-time status for one semester and then full-time status the next semester? Yes, if they're eligible for it, they can receive that. In fact, when they calculate the AEG, even though a student may be half-time, sometimes a student gets confused because for the second semester, they'll calculate it for a full-time status. So it may reflect more, but of course, if they go down to half-time status, they'll only get half of that amount awarded. I like to make mention of that because sometimes students get confused. And then, of course, they have to meet whatever satisfactory academic progress is required at their institution. And how do they apply? They simply fill out the FAFSA every year, every academic year. The sooner, the better. I can't stress that enough, because we award on a first come, first served basis, and it goes by the date that the student filled out the FAFSA. And I can't tell you how many times a student will, fill out the FAFSA a week or 2, or even, the week of college classes starting, and I see their EFC is, -15, or not their EFC, their SAI now. They got to get used to that. Their SAI is negative 1,500, and they'd likely be a candidate for eligibility for the AEG. They're not even going to be in the running because the odds are, it doesn't mean they won't. It just means the odds are everyone that filled out the FAFSA before them, who also had an SAI of negative 1,500, is in line before them. So if we run out of money, they may not get it. So it's really crucial that they fill out the FAFSA as soon as possible so that they're in the running for this. It's a lot of extra money for them. Now, qualifying students, once a student fills out the FAFSA, regardless of whether they're eligible or not, if they list a college in Alaska on their FAFSA, they will receive an email notification from ACPE saying, we've received your FAFSA. You could be eligible for an AEG. To see if you're eligible, create an ACAP account. And this is important too, because the ACAP account will let them know if they're eligible and what their status is, where their money is. They can track their money and follow it throughout the course of their college education on the amounts that they're awarded. We give instructions on how to create that ACAP account. It's found, if you go to our website, acpe.alaska.gov, go about the middle of the screen, you'll see these 3 boxes that you see on the screen, just underneath the loan information. The 3rd box, this one right here that I'm circling, they simply click on that, and that takes them to a create a login account. If they don't have an account, they create an account. If they already have a login account, they'll just log in. When they create an account, we are going to send them an email, a verification email. So they simply have to click on that link, and then they're good to go. Now they can log into their account and start seeing their information, which will look like this. It's a welcome to ACAP. In the top box, we usually just put notifications, news, maybe something about the FAFSA, it's going to be late or delayed or having problems or whatever the case may be. But this is where a student can not only find out information about their AEG, but they can also find out their eligibility for APS, which is what Kate's going to talk about next. So I'll stick to AEG. But when they come to this, they'll normally see in red number of items that need to be done. If they click on it, or if they click on this little box that has the plus sign on it, it'll open up, it expand, and let them know what it is they need to do. It'll let them know your FAFSA for 24-25 has been received, or maybe it hasn't been received yet. Maybe they just created the account, or maybe they just filled out the FAFSA today and it hasn't processed yet. It takes that 3 to 7 days to process. So we haven't received their FAFSA yet. So it'll say your FAFSA needs to be done. This is where a lot of students say, hey, I've already filled out the FAFSA 2 days ago. It's still telling me I need to fill out my FAFSA. Well, yes, it is saying that because we haven't received it yet. It needs to get through that. It needs to process. It needs to get back to us. And then there again, they have to have listed at least one college in the state of Alaska in order for it to be triggered to us, for us to get that information. So if it's saying this and they've already filled out their FAFSA, let them know that once it processes, they should log back in and then see what it says. Because until we get that information, it's going to be indicating that they need to fill out their FAFSA. We no longer send out emails for intent forms, so we're working on removing that, or hiding it, but for now it's still on there. Just ignore it. That's this one right here. If that may be checked, that says you have a number of incomplete items, and that shows up. Those intent forms were intended to give us an idea of how many people were planning to use it, but a lot of people didn't fill it out. So we no longer send out intent forms, so they can ignore that. In the other boxes under ACAP, they can check just about anything else. The most crucial thing they're going to check is the award and eligibility information. So once they click on that, then they're going to be taken to this page, which will show if say they're APS, it'll show if this student, for example, is not eligible for the APS, but they're eligible for the AEG, and they've already used 15,000 of it. And it'll show this is for the 23-24 academic year, this student, and what they want to check to see if they're eligible is their status under this bar right here and the amount. And again, it's going to be calculated initially for full-time status until it's certified by the school as to whether they're half-time or not even half-time, in which case they won't get any of it. Or if they're on time, then it'll show 2,000. This student happens to be a full-time student because they're awarded $1,500. And they've obviously, have been going several years because they've already used 15,000 and remember that 16,000 aggregate. So that means if they were to click on this little box, it would probably show the remainder, $1,000, because it goes to 16,000 of what's left for the 24-25 academic year. So this student looks like this student has gone more than 4 years, but they're still able to collect the AEG. So the legend and the status will let them know that they're eligible, and then where it is. Notice it was, let me go back. It was the little dollar sign. So let's go to the legend to see what that dollar sign says. Your award has been paid to the college. Okay, that's where the student knows, okay, my award has already been paid. I'm eligible. It has already been paid to the college. So the college should be putting it in my account soon. If it was something else, say like for the APS, it has that X. The legend, go to the X, you do not qualify for this program, or just follow the legend. Whatever it says indicates there, it will determine where that student's money is in the process. Now, something to keep in mind, and I'm looking at the time. Okay, good. I'm okay here. Disbursements at many colleges are not made for the AEG and APS until after the drop add period, which I believe will take UAA, for example. I think their drop add period was last Friday or the Friday before. It's usually 2 weeks after the term starts. In any case, the student gets through the drop and add period before the money is dispersed into their account. And I cannot recall the drop add period. It was either last Friday or the Friday before at, say, UAA, which means a lot of times a student will frantically call and say, I'm being told, I'm showing on ACAP that I'm eligible and the school's been given my money, but I haven't seen it in my account. Well, if you haven't gone through if that student hasn't gone through the drop add period, it's not going to be in their account. Usually they don't disperse it into the account until they get through past that last day of drop and add. They want to make sure that the student is still enrolled and before they disperse the money into the account. So just let them know, hold tight. Be patient. The school has received the money. It will be going into your account as soon as, the process, however long the process takes. If there's money to be awarded back to the student for, any reason, and they're expecting those funds, then I usually recommend that a student create a direct deposit account with their online college account because they get their money quicker. If there's money that has to be awarded by the college and they don't have the direct deposit, then a check has to be issued from the college to get to the student. So could take a little bit longer if it's the paper trail and issuing the check. So I always recommend wait, be patient. Once you get through the drop add period, it should be dispersed. Check ACAP. ACAP is crucial because it will let you know where your money is and if it's been awarded. If it's showing something else, then you're not getting it. And not every student who is eligible will receive money. And that's kind of tricky because that's where you go back to grants are awarded on a first come, first served basis. So even though you may have, say, a negative 1,500, and therefore you would normally be eligible, we may not have received your FAFSA. You may have been at the bottom of the line in terms of when you filled out the FAFSA. So even though you could have been out, the student could have been eligible, they will not receive the grant. Now, what we do is we start at the negative 1,500 SAI and move up from there. So once we award everyone at the negative 1,500, then we can move up to 0 and higher SAIs. If we still have money in the pot, then theoretically a person with a SAI above 0 could receive the money. That hasn't been the case. I can tell you right now that hasn't been the case, at least not last year or any previous years. It's usually when it was EFC, usually it's 0 EFC. And I just checked this year and it was still at 0, negative 1,500, but we did move up to 0. So there was, we do move up and until we exhaust all of the funds. So that's how that works. Again, the sooner a student fills it out, the better off they're going to be. And then just to wrap it all up, if a student needs help navigating or creating an ACAP account, or maybe they can't remember their login information, they can always come into our office. It's by appointment if they come into the office in person, or they can do a You Can Book Me at any time. To get a You Can Book Me, they would simply go to our website, acpe.alaska.gov, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen where you see the black, or in this case, a very, very dark blue. And then you click on the word Success Center. Just click on that. It'll take you to this box here that says You Can Book Me. You just click on the You Can Book Me and they can schedule an appointment for whatever they may need, either to fill out their FAFSA, to create their ACAP account, to check their ACAP account, to verify anything, to troubleshoot their login information, or anything like that. So with that, I'll open it up for questions and then turn it back to Dominica. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Audrey shared that date September 6th in the chat box that you
for drop an ad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. So it should be this week. If it was September 6th, I'm guessing this week money should be dispersed into accounts. It's usually takes about a week after the drop ad where money students start seeing it in their accounts. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Christina, for your time today and for sharing this crucial information with all of us. I don't see any questions in the chat box, so we'll let you go. Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.